Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. Welcome to the Game Week 6 pod of the FPL Wire. I'm your host, Zophar, and I'm joined by my co hosts, Late Riser and Pras. How are you doing, guys? Excited for tonight?
Huh.
Excited
I'm
is
not
one
sure
way to
about
put
that.
it.
Yeah. Nervous, very, very nervous about tonight, but we'll be in the Champions League after a long time. Uh, and yeah, don't feel confident at all. Top's not in a good place, but let's see what happens. Tell us about your week, Zoph. Your head's been running since Sunday. You've been the most active. You've been so on it. How's the wildcard tinkering coming along?
I actually made a draft on Monday, Tuesday, and so often I find that the initial draft I make is probably the best one, and I haven't really moved away from it. That obviously two or three 50-50s, which I'm keen to discuss with you guys. And what I'm happy is that we haven't really discussed it much on our usual WhatsApp, what we usually do. So what you guys will see will actually be the first initial discussion I'm having with you guys. I'm open on most spots, but more so than others. But I'm very, very starting off. I want to say off what I always say: throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Don't necessarily throw good players out just for the sake of making changes. A lot of times you try to justify the wild card that, oh, I'm making only 6 changes, I'm making only 7 changes, I should make more. That's not something I'm going to do.
And I think the broader chat on wildcard, obviously will apply to non-wildcarders as well. As we think about each position, for people who are thinking of wildcarding themselves or when they want to wildcard, like the problem positions you talk about or upsides that you look for. So I think, that's a good basis for having the discussion.
Correct. Because when we'll be
How do you
talking
feel
Newcastle,
about?
go ahead.
I was just asking Pras, how do you feel about the shit show that was Game Week 5 and everybody's general reaction to that?
I think it's overblown. I mean, people don't understand this is not a bad game week. This is an average game week. Average game week means you're in and around everybody else. Some people did very well, but that's it. A bad game week. Let's take my team into context. If Madison scores a 15-pointer, I don't own him. If Foden scores a 10-pointer and all my players blank, that's a bad game week. This is okay. I mean, it's just, it's in a way for patient, non-knee jerky managers, it's a good game week. Other people around you, let them panic, let them take hits. You can evaluate where you stand at the moment. Let them take wildcards, and we'll come to obviously Zoph's team. But I guess you have to sort of take your time and evaluate. And these are the weeks where it doesn't matter what happened; it matters what you do after.
Yeah, and it's, if you really think about it, it's typical of the first game week post the first international break. Like if memory serves us right, it's generally always the weirdest week in terms of performances, results, etc. as well. But I've been quietly observing the reaction on Twitter, the reaction in the community in general, and I just think it's a fascinating FPL season that we have ahead of us, because so far, at least, what it looks like to me is it's so dependent on your subjective opinion of performances, your reads, etc. Nothing is as obvious as it was last season. Maybe there are so many things that are open for debate, open for conversation. I'm quite enjoying that entire thing.
Should we kick off, guys?
Let's do it.
Sponsor plug first. LR, you do the honors.
Right. So all the stats that you see on the podcast that you will be seeing, especially on this episode, all of them are from the Fantasy Football Scout members area. If you haven't signed up already, and if you're looking to wildcard within the vicinity of the next 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, it's a good time to become a member and play around with the members area so that it help aid you with your decision making, so that it enables you to be more objective when there is so much subjective opinion flying out as well. So if you aren't a member, please click on the links in the description below.
Great. Now, let's get started. Pras, you sent me this image. This is taken from Rob T FPL. The source is Spreadex. This is how the bookies have adjusted their expectation for points for these Premier League teams since the start of the season. For the audio listeners, the big gains are Tottenham and Brighton, with United and Chelsea taking a big hit. The bottom 4, Burnley, Everton, Sheffield United and Luton, also take a big hit there. West Ham also, I just noticed there's a big jump. So this is where it's a good indication of where the team's strength is overall. I think it's a good idea. It's a good macro point to look at it, especially on wildcard, right? So you can at least calibrate which teams you're looking at. Anything
Exactly.
Go ahead, Pras.
I mean, exactly. This is the point where first 5 game weeks, the markets have moved a lot, but they can again swing back. If Man United win the next 4, you'll see a change here. But I think the bigger picture here that we should discuss as part of the wildcard, also the timing as well as the players you pick, what do we know so far? Like within the teams, I think, look, Man City and Arsenal haven't moved much in the spreads, which basically tells us what you've seen so far. We know what they are. They're probably the 2 best teams in the league. On Arsenal, you can probably question, is their attack as good as last season? Too early to say, but I think that's a sign that we need to look out for. Liverpool, doing a little bit better than last season, but you'd expect that their start has been a little better and that they're delivering results. But from an FPL point of view, that's a different discussion. Then comes the interesting one. Spurs, much better than what we thought. But are we sure? Are we sure about them in terms of how attacking they will be? Are we sure about who plays up front? I'm not sure yet. Brighton, great team, doing well. They're doing much better than expectation, which was already high. Where does that go? And then again, the two guys, Man United, Chelsea. A lot of people are giving up playing wildcards because they have lost faith in Man United and Chelsea. We're not going to spend the whole podcast telling people they're good teams, but do we know for sure yet if they're going to be as bad as what the markets have made them to be?
Your thoughts on that, LR?
I mean, I quite clearly remember last week when Pras was talking about downside protection and telling us that you have to prepare for the worst case scenario. And I was just like, hey, take it easy, Pras. You're talking like an insurance guy. It won't get that bad. And here we are with, Chelsea drawing and United getting spanked by Brighton. And it is what Pras had predicted, which is the worst case scenario. It is also incongruence about the thoughts you had where you weren't really feeling confident about either of the teams as well. Talk to me, Zoph, actually, because I want to know what went into your head. When did the idea of the wildcard come into your head? What made it confident? And when was it when you finally said, you know what, I'm actually going to go for it? Just take us and our listeners through the thinking.
So my initial target was I was going to wildcard over the second international break, not game week 9, game week 10. Is generally I like that period when I have a lot of time to think, things are settled. It's been a general trend for me over the last 10 to 11 years. So after the Chelsea game finished on Sunday, I didn't actually activate the wildcard. I let Bumo rise. I didn't even commit to that transfer because I knew if I got Bumo in, this Chilwell has to be addressed as well. Effectively, by doing that one transfer, I would be committing to the wildcard, and we had a holiday over here. Public holiday in India on Monday, had a good time to think about it. So, and then I went through Pras's video and I had a conversation with him about each stage, what would be the opportunity cost of wildcarding now versus wildcarding 8, 9, or 10. So the way that my team stacked up, I had issues with, I wanted Jackson out for Alvarez. Chilwell was an issue that needed to be addressed. I didn't have Bumo, somebody I really wanted. I had Pickford in goal. I had Saliba in there. So I could possibly have managed ahead with a -4. Put out a decent team, but it didn't feel like an ideal team. There's still 3-4 holes where I felt I could get quite hurt. And then I've looked at the few game weeks ahead and I realized that the team I'm picking, even now, for then still has good players. It's not, so you might have a variance where, let's say now, like, Salah blanks the next two, Son hits a hat trick. So that variance can always happen when you're picking good players. That comes down to a coin toss. But I felt I could get 2 weeks now of Salah. Let's say before the template jumps on him, I could get a few weeks of Newcastle double defense before they become too popular. But a big reason for it, primarily for me, was Salah. Because I like this fixture at home to West Ham. Salah looked good. Then I think next one is Brighton away. Brighton away, where I think Brighton are playing Marseille away and then Liverpool. That's another good fixture then. And then you have the entire good run with Tottenham, etc., etc. So in general, I just figured the opportunity cost is low. I didn't like the way my team looked. I wanted Chelsea players out, exercised, I would like to call it, from my team. And purely that was more of a mental thing for me. I didn't necessarily think they're bad picks, but I just wasn't having fun. And ultimately, why do we play this game? For fun. Yeah. So whatever. Like, it's not like I don't want Sterling to score. I'm still hoping with every ounce of my fiber that Chelsea wins 6-0. And I'll still be happy about it.
He could still be in your team come Saturday. Let's not rule that out. We still have to have a conversation.
The thing with Sterling is, though, I've taken the one for the entire community, like Suj is with Trossard. Sterling is to me. Yeah. Entire, like, point of playing FPL, I've never had success with Sterling. Remember our first episode of the FPL Wire, the title, It's Been Emotional, was about Pras. So I've sold him. You guys can enjoy the points. I've done it for Chelsea. That's about it.
The lore, as they say it, So we have Zoph selling Sterling, and that's when he generally does well. Pras, let's you like to talk about the coins and the other side. Yeah. And were you at all tempted by the wild card, and what's your perception of this?
I wasn't, because what I ended up doing last week was reducing my exposure to Man United and Chelsea. So I sold Bruno instead of a Saka to get a Son. This week again, I'll be selling minimum one Chelsea player. So therefore, I feel like I have reduced my exposure to an extent where there is still upside with the fixtures, both with Man United and Chelsea over the next 2-3. And I've got enough good players to dead end to a team where I can wildcard with a little bit more information. So the other side of the coin is basically that you stay patient if you're seeing the right things. And I think with Rashford, with Sterling to an extent, you could even argue with Jackson, but I think most of the community has given up on him and we can chat about him. But you can still see some signs. And so therefore, I feel there is no need to wildcard at the moment, especially because ultimately what Zoph and other wildcard teams will try to do, and actually there's a very nice path where you can wildcard now, and your team in game week 9, 10, when other people will wildcard, is not going to be too dissimilar. That is only going to be the case, though, if nothing else happens that we don't know will happen.
Based on the information we have now.
Exactly. So this is why if you can hold and if you can say that I can take my team to game week 8, I think is the first nice swing window where I think Liverpool has played the 2 away games, which is Brighton, and who else do they play away? Tottenham. So they've played the 2 away games. Then even the Villa players that you're looking to get, they're playing Chelsea and Brighton. So basically, if you're going to target these players, again, playing purely from a fixtures perspective, maybe game week 8 is a little better window, but I completely get it. If you think your team is right now, Salah could score a hat-trick against Wolves, and who cares about the other two fixtures? And or West Ham. So I think I get both sides of the argument. And to be honest, it is fairly team dependent anyway, but even more so now, if you're thinking that I have particularly lost faith in a particular team and I can jump on other people, absolutely fine to do it as well.
Yeah. See, that's what it is, right? It's so subjective in terms of how you perceive how Chelsea is going to play. Like, you like to trust the fixtures, and the fixtures for Chelsea read Villa at home and then Fulham and Burnley away. And it's a difficult sell if you're looking at just those fixtures alone, and that's a separate thing. And then we have somebody like Zoph who's making that call, where he's seen enough, where he is confident that somebody like a Mo and a Boomo is going to offer more than a Sterling or a Son or a Madison, for example, and that's completely fine. Now, what I particularly didn't like is people bad-mouthing those that jumped on the wildcard on a Monday or a Tuesday, calling it a knee-jerk. I don't think it's a knee-jerk. And I think you need to be prepped in terms of just at any point having enough information where you want to pull the plug until game week 10, 11. Be ready for it. Don't have a closed mind to it. Plan for it if I have to. Because I know Zoph. I know for a fact that he's always liked Salah as a pick, and he's been itching to get him since the last 2-3 weeks. His primary number one target, even when he was talking about planning for the wildcard the last 3 weeks, was Boomo. He wanted him in place. A double Newcastle defense is a great bet to make given the fixtures that are there. Let's not say great, let's say good bet to make given the fixtures that are there for the next 5-6 games. And then there's Haaland and Alvarez, which again look like good picks. So I think this is going to be the starting point for anybody that sort of wildcards, and it's a solid base, because one thing you need to be wary of always is have a structure in place when you're future planning or thinking about what to take care of. Who will you want in game week 10, 11? The biggest structural change is Mo Salah, and Zoph has it in place. And I think to shift the other pieces around isn't that difficult. So I don't think it's a bad idea. I just think it's your subjective perception.
And I like Zoph's approach of sort of working backwards to the team that he wants in the future. Always I do this as well. So I see some wildcard drafts where people are taking different punts for basically taking out players that they've lost faith in, but taking different punts now. Let's say they're saying, okay, I'm going to take Morris as my third striker. I'm going to rotate him with another midfielder that I'm not very sure about, but okay, I'll go for that. I'll take a punt on, in my defense, I'll go for other picks that are not that popular at the moment. What could happen is after 4-5 game weeks, we revert to the mean, where Man United show decent attacking stats, where Arsenal are showing attacking form again, where Villa are actually looking good again in terms of, attack is anyway good, but, Watkins is looking great again. How do you maneuver your team to get to a position where in game week 9 or 10, you get to these players that will be much more popular, because we know over a longer period that these are good picks.
Correct. The key is not to commit and I think too much money in keep it flexibility, where you can get there with 2 moves. Maximum I might have to take a hit to align myself with the wildcarders at that time. That's about it.
Yeah, and personally speaking, I was tempted. I've been thinking about, in fact, today is when I was like, it makes the most sense to wildcard. But there's only one thing that's stopping me from doing it, is I'm not confident about the picks I really want. The main pick that I want if I wasn't wildcarding today is Mo Salah. Outside of that, I'm not really confident about things that changing too much. I'm not confident which are the best uh, premium light midfielders to get. Is Richarlison going to be a proper option in 2-3 weeks? And am I okay holding the current midfield that I have? I am. So that was my personal reasoning in terms of I just don't think I have enough grasp or read of the season so far in terms of knowing exactly the players I want. And until that comes into my head, I'm okay to tread along.
And that's why I'm very much on the same boat with you. And that's why you see I've gone for the two most expensive, not Sun really, but two expensive premium lights in Rashford and Saka. To go, and you can pretty much downgrade those guys and go anywhere. You can even, let's say you downgrade even a Saka to a Palmer, you can get Trent, or to a Hudson-Odoi. The flexibility remains.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you in that. Yeah, I think that's the key. Whatever you do with your structure, the flexible structure in terms of potential targets you'll want in the future, who are tough to get to, like Trent in defense and Salah in midfield. As long as you're sort of taking care of that, you're fine.
Should we move on to the wildcard discussion, or should we first talk about Chilwell? I think Chilwell is a big topic in the community. We might not cover him on wildcard. Let's get him out of the way.
Let's just talk about Chelsea in general. I think
Sure.
Chelsea and City having that conversation with regards to Jackson, Alvarez, all of that. What did you make of the performance against Bournemouth? Zoph?
We created only 8 chances, and if you ask me, any half decent team scores 5 against Bournemouth. Bournemouth were wide open. Any team, we should have scored at least 4 or 5, but it's a standard thing for the last 5 games. Wrong decision, wrong execution, just poor. The last minute, the team is not finding its cutting edge. Same story.
What my read of Chelsea is that they've got decent enough control when they're playing against whoever the opposition is. It's just the final decision. And that comes with building team chemistry, that comes with players getting to know each other. But what is happening is right now your manager isn't even aiding that, where he isn't starting a consistent starting 11. He's making pretty significant changes week on week in terms of personnel. So, there isn't space for team chemistry to develop. There isn't space for players to play with each other, getting to know each other.
Injuries aren't helping. Just in that aspect, that's a problem again.
Yeah, so that's the problem with Chelsea. I feel like they're not playing terribly. They're playing well. They're playing okay. They're playing good. You see them score 5 goals in the next 3 games, and nobody's going to be surprised here because they're creating that much. It's not like a barren land in terms of them creating nothing at all, and that allows some patience if you want to exert patience. But how do you read Chilwell's starting chances the next few weeks?
So Pochettino mentioned after the game that he doesn't want his fullbacks to attack. He wants a back four to the stable because apparently they're causing confusion to the forward players, which sounded so strange from me from a guy who basically invented Danny Rose and Walker, right? Spurs fullbacks, from what I can remember at that point, were one of the best in the league. So that completely blew my mind. Every modern manager wants to attack with his fullbacks, so I really don't know. So he's pretty much classified Chilwell as a left winger now. And I don't think he's going to go with that experiment anymore because that hasn't worked. I think what we will see next game is Palmer on the right, Sterling on the left. That to me makes the most sense because Mudryk was good, but again, the decision-making wasn't great.
Yeah, but you can still have Chilwell play left back and not attack. I mean, Shaw has played centre back, even though he's such an attacking left back. So what I mean is, it's not like he's a club captain.
But he likes Colwill. Colwill's distribution and the attributes that Colwill offers.
You could play Colwill left centre back, play Chilwell left back.
I don't think.
And if you're inverted,
what he's done is
get rid of Disasi.
I don't think it could be. There's a small chance, but again, going by what the comments are of him indicating Chilwell as a left winger, I don't think he wants to touch the back four.
I think again, Pras made a good point on his Twitter as well, where this was the conversation and these were the comments that he made before the game, right? If I'm not mistaken.
So there's two quotes. The first quote is where he said, "I'm going to play Mudryk. I've decided to play Mudryk because we want more attack, and I've kept the same back four." This was before the game, and he was talking about Bournemouth. So that immediately says that, look, if Mudryk was poor, then either Chilwell comes back or Palmer comes back, or he can change the back line. Then there was a separate comment after the game where he said, "I want my fullbacks are creating confusion, and I don't want them." So my reading is Mudryk probably is not playing the next game, which is, I think, aligns with what Zoph is saying, where Palmer comes in. And if that is the case, then for me, either Chilwell plays left wing instead of Palmer, or he could very well come in as left back, but we could be wrong. But I think there's a decent chance for me that it's not like Chilwell has lost his spot. I mean, the guy is the fittest, one of the best on the ball, one of the best left backs. He's not gonna just sort of lose out and miss out his spot to Palmer or Mudryk.
I mean, he came on, and within 5 or 10 minutes, he created the best chance anybody's created in the final third for Chelsea. Laid it on the platter in terms of an accurate pinpoint cross as well, right? So, I mean, the quality is there. You can't question it. And he's had an insanely high ceiling if playing left wing for the 2-3 weeks. I mean, we're all predicting. The problem is that we're all predicting at the moment. And we want to see if Poch gives us any hints tomorrow or Friday. And that's when we decide. But I don't know. Like it's a very dicey given the fixtures that they have. I'm not expecting a clean sheet against Villa, given how well Villa have played. But given nobody really is putting their hand up, and unless you're going to Trippier or a Newcastle defender, I don't think any other defender is putting their hand. I think it's Newcastle defender or nobody if you're moving Chilwell.
Everyone could get to a Botman, right? So downgrade from Chilwell. And I'm glad you mentioned fixtures because I think the next three are tougher than the three we just played. I think Forest and Bournemouth were probably the easier ones. Villa is a tough game. I'm not looking at Villa as an easy fixture at all. They're a much better, much more functional team than us. Fulham is a local derby. They always raise their game against us. I don't expect it to be very high scoring. Maybe we score 2. And Burnley on the home patch, again, they are a little bit leaky, but they will give us a game.
Got it. I mean, so Zoph, if you had to sell because it's a tough decision. Most people own Saliba and Estupinan in addition to Chilwell. If you're selling one of them to move to Newcastle defender of choice, which one would you sell?
Chilwell
is what you would say. Pras?
I would sell Saliba, but that's my team. And because I also have Ruben Diaz, so I have already 2 good defenders this week, Estupinan and Diaz, right? So I don't need Saliba to play for me this week. So if I wanted to sell, I can just sell Saliba and keep Chilwell as an option. And then next week I'll play Kabore anyway. So this is my team. So I don't actually need that third slot. And I can take, if I'm wrong on Chilwell, I'll move him on next week. And I especially don't like a move for Chilwell. So, in our Discord, Parmo, Eno, Joshua, all 3 of them asked. In fact, Maka also asked, should we take a hit for Chilwell to Botman? I just don't like that at all. Like, Botman will get you 6 points on a good day. Chilwell can either start, and in that case, I think that's okay. It's sort of already your hit is worthless. And if he doesn't start, then correct the move next week, or maybe you anyway next week you have a double game weeker in Kabore or Bear who can fill in, and it's not an emergency, so it doesn't need a hit for me.
The only reason you take the hit is if it's funding somebody. Like that's the only reason.
Or for Trippier.
For Trippier is a different thing.
Yeah, because I have that decision, right? I've got Estupinan, Saliba, Chilwell, and 2 non-playable defenders in Kabore. And I mean, Kabore was decent this week, and Bear, right? So you want to ideally rely on the first 3 defenders. And I think about selling Chilwell versus selling Saliba. And then I look at Saliba playing Spurs, City, Chelsea, and then Newcastle in the next 5 games. And he's a 6 to 8 point kind of defender, right? Whatever you do, unless you get lucky with one-headed goal. That's what we're looking at essentially. And I don't think it's that easy in a decision. The problem is that if I have to move, I might need to move today. But if possible, I'd want to see what Poch says over the press conferences and see if he gives us a hit. And if he's saying like, no, you know what, this was a 1-game experiment, because people will ask him that question since he's the vice captain. Essentially the captain while James is not fit. See what information emerges, and if it looks rosy, then hold him, is where I'm.
I mean, the thing with Saliba also is the only week where you would play him is that double game week where you'd rather play, even in your team and in many others, the 1 week he plays Bournemouth is the other weeks where you actually will prefer to play a double game weeker. Now, if you can have a different view, and if you think you would rather play Saliba over a Kabore, fine. But the other 3 weeks, he's playing Chelsea, Spurs, and Man City. So I certainly think that if it's just a downgrade, and if it's simple downgrade, and you can have the luxury, maybe Chilwell starts again, and now you have a great option against Fulham and Burnley. Whether he keeps a clean sheet or not is a different point, but it's a good option against those 2 teams.
Yeah, objectively, Villa isn't a banker fixture. It's the 2 after that. Yeah.
Only thing on Arsenal.
What do you think about?
I just want to mention, I think David Raya takes a defense to another level. Ramsdale's had a save percentage of 55%. And at Raya, I think after Allison, I'm just looking at all the other teams, it's the best shot stopper in the league.
Yeah.
If
Yeah,
he's
I just want to see him starting for the next 3 or 4 games.
You really
Because
think he's going to
Arteta's-
lose his spot after that? You read what Arteta said, the rubbish about him wanting to substitute him on and all that stuff earlier.
in the middle
Yeah.
of the game. I mean, that would be something.
I mean, but what it seemed to me like is Arteta is making a point like De Zerbi's in terms of if I'm rotating my outfielders, why can't I rotate my keepers based on certain qualities that he's assessing in his head? It's something that 3 of us are conditioned, and all football fans are conditioned, where there needs to be a number one. And it's what, if you read the whole length of the interview, Arteta was like, that's my conditioning, and I sometimes regret not making that move because I'm only 3.5 years into management, and this position can be moved and treated like how you treat other outfielders. So I just want to see 2-3 more games of him quietly starting before just jumping there as well.
I'm not saying as a pick, but in general, I'm pretty confident now Raya has sure to lose. Because again, the distribution, you see the control he exerted at the passing, the calmness in the last few minutes of that Everton game. Top keeper. Big fan.
Yeah, he's better than Ramsdale. I think all 3 of us agree with that.
Agreed.
Yeah, you should consider him, honestly, as a keeper. If you are of the perception that it's Raya's jersey to lose, because he's a bloody damn good keeper option at 4.8. Like 1 save and 2 bonus points. Like his ceiling is ridiculous. Like if he starts the next 3 games, everybody that's wildcarding later is a 100% jumping on Raya. Like especially if he shows the kind of form that and the FPL nows that we are expecting him of.
Yeah. I'm okay with taking the hit because the fixtures for Arsenal, like Pras mentioned, a little bit dodgy short term. I'm happy with my goalkeeper rotation. I'll share with you guys. And later on, if I have to take a hit for somebody like Raya, I'm open to it. Because again, high ceiling keeper.
Fair enough. Let's just finish the Chelsea discussion as well. Where are you on Raz? And Pras, how do you feel about it?
I'm okay to keep him. Next 3 game weeks, it's fine. I mean, if I had a wildcard, I don't know if he'd be in it. But because I don't, and I have only 1 free transfer, and I'm using it to take out the other problem from Chelsea, not Raz, I think he's fine. I mean, if that free kick goes in, and we are talking inches, if that free kick from him goes in, people are actually looking at Raz as one of the picks, and he's a great option ahead of the 3 fixtures that are coming up. It is just what FPL is. So I don't have a problem having 1 ahead of a good fixture run. Also because Spurs' fixtures are not the great in the next 3. Man United are fine, but you don't want to overexpose. You don't want overexposure there as well. So where do you really go? I mean, if somebody has no issues in their team and they want to take out Raz, sure, Mbumo looks great for the next 3-4 games. So that's an option, but I don't see a lot of options where you can go away from Raz if you have it.
Something to mention also that Jackson is on 4 yellows. I'm pretty confident he's going to get booked at some point again in the next 3 games, in which case Broja is pictured back in training. I think he might have the game with the reserves and all that stuff. It might be Sterling centre forward with Broja to come off the bench. Something else also that has to be factored in.
Right.
What do you think of his performances, though? What do you think of him as a pick, Zoph?
He's probably our best player so far in terms of attack. He's definitely an easier hold than the other 2 assets we mentioned.
Yeah. Like my thing is, out of the current midfield 5 that I own, he actually looks like the liveliest. He actually looks like if his teammates could finish, very likely to get points. And I think he's been the unluckiest in the last 2 weeks in terms of, presenting a chance to Jackson on the platter that he missed. Having an excellent free kick just hit the underside of the bar. I mean, even more than that, there was a chance where he was open and he had a goal wide open, gaping, and he almost sort of crossed. I don't know if that was a miss hit or not.
It was a miss hit. He's not as good on the right, I think, in terms of his shooting. University, he was much better shooting from the left, where he can cut in and shoot with his right foot.
Yeah. But like what you expect from him from an SPL point of view, he's not hogging the byline. Like every opportunity when the ball is coming in from the other side, he's hurrying to take central positions. And I quite like that in an FPL asset as well. So how I feel about him is when we're talking about your wildcard, I would urge you to think about him and consider him strongly in your wildcard team. Is that how that's how I feel about Raheem Sterling at the moment?
You don't want any Sterling points, bro?
Let him make the sacrifice.
At some point, the Lord will go. It'll all be fine. But yeah, that's just how I feel.
Shall we kick on then?
Yeah.
We need to talk about Jackson, man. I mean, look, let's not waste time. I think Alvarez is the pick. He is on 4 yellows. I just want a couple of words on Jackson because I feel like people, there's been questioned We've been questioned in terms of content creators picking Jackson instead of Alvarez. So I just want to address that. I think in game week 2, when people were or game week 3, when people were looking to go on Chelsea picks, everybody debated, should we go for an Alvarez or a Jackson? Everybody saw that Jackson's getting 90 minutes. He's starting, he's getting chances. And they took an educated guess of the fact that when you play Luton, Nottingham Forest and Bournemouth away, that if you have a striker up top, you should get decent returns. In the end, Alvarez has got about 20 points more than him. I don't think it's a mistake. It's just one of those things that happen in FPL where you make a call based on the information that's presented to you at the time. And at the time, I would do it every single time again. Now that we've learned after these 3 blocks of fixtures that he's struggling, he's missed some chances, he's been unlucky as well. And Chelsea as a team are struggling. You want to reduce your exposure in the team, especially for a guy who's on 4 yellow cards and his competition is now in training. It's a logical move out as well. So I think all these things are fairly logical, and there is nothing to say where there's been a mistake, we should have gone back, we should not sleep in the night because we should have gone for Alvarez instead. That's where I am.
I don't know. When Alvarez scored that goal last time, we ran around the keeper and my dog just turned to me and looked me in the eye and said, "Really, man? You went for Jackson over this?"
Yeah. But like process, the one thing is that we guessed that he would get chances in those fixtures against 6 teams. And the risk, what was the risk when we judged that move is whether we don't know how he'd adapt to the league and whether he'd convert those chances. Now, so far, he hasn't converted those chances, and that's the thing that hasn't worked out in our favor. But yeah,
he scored 15 goals of XG of 11 last season. Different league, different place.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have history of underperformance. You know, the people just say you underperform when you always underperform, but that's not true.
Yeah.
But fair, take your point. It's always a risk when you go for a new player, unless the player is called Salah or Haaland. So, but you know, it is what it is.
That was the only risk we took. Like him getting chances happened against teams which were good fixtures. That happened. It's just that he didn't convert them. I mean, Chelsea have 5 goals from 10 XG so far this season, and they're 3rd or 4th for XG so far this season. So like underlying numbers are also there. He just hasn't converted them. Yeah. Chelsea just hasn't converted them.
Correct. And Imran in the chat, Imran in the chat is saying, look, it's fine if content creators went there, or not even, I shouldn't even say, many people went there. But now, yeah, there's no reason to justify it. I think you take the L, you go to an Alvarez who's starting every single game. You don't need to faff around with Wissa or Højlund, we know that Alvarez is starting every single game. Bernardo Silva is injured. So therefore, pretty much you have Doku and Foden who'll play on the wings. Alvarez should start most games. And now that I've said this, he's going to be benched next game.
I'll just say that I don't think he's a hard sell. Just want to put it.
Yeah, of course. It's Chelsea. We don't badmouth Chelsea on this spot.
Yeah. I'm just saying, because I want to be authentic. I don't think he's a hard sell.
Fair enough.
Fair.
Move on?
Yep, let's go.
Let's talk about the wildcard picks. And then, of course, we will now discuss in each position and also alternatives versus the guys who are there for single game weekers. So I'll just read out.
Yeah, and just at the top, it's worth mentioning that while we're discussing Zoph's wildcard draft and wildcard picks in the direction you can, we're also going to talk about transfers in and out in terms of what you prioritize. So this isn't a just for wildcarders only podcast. We sort of weave in everything that we want to discuss around this.
And we're going to roast Zoph's wildcard. Doesn't mean we don't like it or he shouldn't have wildcarded. That's just how we will evaluate it.
I'm happy for that, right? You have to take the devil's advocate approach. If you're just going to say, oh, everything's rosy, that's not what I want to hear.
Exactly.
Cool. I'll just read it out for the audio, guys. It's Flecken and Areola in between the posts. Burn, Estupinan, Kabore, Botman, and Cash in defense. Saka, Salah, Bumo, Diaby, Rashford in midfield. Archer, Alvarez, and Haaland up top. So the 5 who have remained from my original team are Estupinan, Kabore, Saka, Rashford, and Archer.
And Haaland.
And Haaland, obviously, right? To keep forgetting about that.
Doesn't count.
That's pretty much doesn't count. So I just want to first, like you mentioned, Real, let me just show you guys a goalkeeper rotation with Flecken and Areola. And what I like about this rotation is A, it's a lot of home games. B, it's for 2 decent teams, right? We saw right in the first macro slide, we looked at teams in 10th and 11th. It's not like you're going to teams which are 16th, 15th and all that stuff. These are both teams who are generally good at home. Keepers who generate saves. For teams who allow a lot of low XG chances, good for bonus, etc. And there are no 50-50 decisions except game week 8 probably, but both have easiest fixtures. Apart from that, no matter how bad Chelsea are doing, my digs will be coming. Sorry about that. So, so in general, I like this rotation idea because I don't like any keeper rotation where I have to think about should I play this guy. It's very clear for a longer period. I don't really have to bother about it. I'm not that comfortable going with, say, a Turner, Areola, because it feels that, I know Turner is going to lose his spot any game week if they sign that guy from Benfica. And Areola, again, any injury, suspension, random change of mind from Moyes is going to commit me to a transfer. So I'm quite happy with this rotation for a longer period. Now let's talk about some of the guys in defense.
Let's
just cover goalkeepers in depth in terms of Pras. If you were picking a goalkeeper on Wildcard, who would you go for?
I mean, you have to do Fleck and Areola. I think right now that's the logical one. I don't think I could go for a Raya punt at the moment. I don't, other options Martinez could go for, but again, no point spending the extra money. I would be more tempted to actually play Turner, and my issue is you may need the 0.5 at some point. And people like who are on Onana at the moment, they're missing the 0.5 to catch up with other, with how the template is moving or where the trends are moving. Money in the goalkeeper spot is always sort of precious. And when you look at that rotation, I think it's very nice for the first
6 weeks. For the first 6 weeks, you could say.
After that, you can just ditch Flecken. You don't need Flecken. I mean, the couple of fixtures, I think Wolves, when it's, I don't know, that's game week 19 or something, that's when you need him desperately. But apart from that, even when, Flecken plays Luton, Areola plays Crystal Palace at home, it's not the worst. What I mean is, we don't need to spend that 0.5 extra necessarily, but I get why you need to do it now versus when maybe other people will think about it in game week 10.
Yeah, just for peace of mind, these are 15 fixtures here, and I counted Areola plays in 8, Flecken plays in 7. So if you look at it at a longer period, the stretch is better. And in general, I just sleep better having 2 keepers.
He's 4.5, Flecken?
Yeah.
If I was wildcarding, like my alternates to Flecken would be 2. Like Pras said, I'd go 4.0 if possible, because you don't know when you not need the money. If you're spending 4.5, I'd be very tempted to spend 0.3 more and just go Raya. Like, it's potentially saving you a transfer down the line if you think he's going to
also points in the next 5 game weeks that I see that Flecken gets that's the difference.
I understand, but if you're talking about an elite defense, and if you think that Arsenal are going to be the second best defense in the league, and that keeper costs 4.8, now you understand 1 or 2 more starts, and that price is going up very, very, very quickly. And I don't think the price difference between Flecken and Raya is that much. And you have a solid enough keeper as a base as a second backup.
But slightly disagree with that, only because I think you can get blocked later, right? I mean, at some point, Arsenal's fixtures turn really nice, and that's after game week 10.
It's a gamble you made. It's a gamble you make. It's just a gamble you make.
Let's say you want Zinchenko and you want Martinelli to pair with the Saka. We don't know where the season is going. Maybe we get there. Then you're stuck with a Raya, which you need to solve first if he's not starting. It's basically, I'm saying there's upside, but there's also unnecessary downside
protection.
Downside protection.
Always.
And also, Areola has some difficult fixtures. Right? Like, I don't want to open up the wild card with Liverpool away. There's also that mental aspect of it. I want at least one decent fixture. I want instant gratification. Either way you look at it.
Exactly. So game week 10, and we're going to just compare because, we've done that anchoring. Game week 10, this was the thinking that you have Turner who plays Burnley at home, and then you basically play Areola. Turner has another game which is easier.
Turner has 9 Luton. Turner has game week 9 Luton.
Exactly. So if you did 9,
if Turner plays,
if Turner plays, that's exactly my point. So pretty much Areola. Yeah. That's pretty much locking yourself into Areola as a perma play if you're going Turner.
Yeah, which is something over the last 3 or 4 years that we've preferred as FPL managers, because you don't know when that 10-12 pointer is going to come for those tough fixtures, for those middling keepers. We've established that these middling teams actually, but what we saw of West Ham against City, you sort of question also how much of a middling team. It's almost as if
got 4 points.
Flecken is. Yeah, it's almost as if Flecken is a little more reliable than that West Ham defense. But I'd consider Raya Zoph, especially if you're of the opinion that the number 1 jersey is his. Just let that brew in your head for some time.
Yeah. The problem is I don't have any cash in the bank. I have to generate some cash. Maybe we'll talk about where that comes from later on.
Yeah. And
Anish
just
in the chat is asking Leno or did you consider Leno at all?
They're 20th, bro, for XGC. Fulham, they've kept the 2 clean sheets. They've been against Everton and against Luton.
I'm with
I
you.
think Brentford are a significantly better defense, even with Henry gone. I think Henry obviously is a good defender, but he affects them more going forward. I think defensively, they can sort of, at least to 80 to 90%, make up for him. And again, system-driven team, more
Yeah,
than a
agree.
personal-driven team.
And at some point, Zoph also needs to think about stability, right? Like that's something he needs to base and anchor his wildcard on as well, because this is a team that's going to stay with him for at least 15 game weeks. So there needs to be some sort of stability and downside protection needed if you're building a team for such a long duration. Just while we're discussing keepers, I think it's worth mentioning that I am feeling less and less confident with Johnston and Turner as my keepers, because A, Johnston's both their starting positions are in doubt, and B, that Crystal Palace defense with those injuries right now don't really look that good. Like I think Gahey is a massive loss, and that they could have easily considered 5-6 goals to Villa. They were poor, so I think that injury and what we hear about that injury is very significant in terms of what to expect from these teams.
Move on to the defense.
Let's do that.
So I'll speak to you guys about the Newcastle defense in a bit. First, I'll share my thoughts. That last night was something to watch, right? Somebody sees the scoreline and be like, Newcastle was so airtight, but they conceded a lot of chances in the first half. Second half, a little bit better, but in general, you could tell that this is going to be draining. By the end of it, the players were completely shattered on the floor. But that being said, I had a very close look now at the schedule. The schedule short term is good, right? Because they play now Tuesday. They just played rather Milan. Then they play Sunday, last kickoff. That's pretty much like a Monday, Friday turnaround. It's physically the longest you can get for any side in the Champions League. Keeping in mind there's a Carabao Cup game. Then after that, you have this one, the Carabao Cup against City, where Pep has already indicated he's going to play the kids. That's a comment he's already made. So I think it's very likely that Howe will do the same in that game, considering it's sandwiched right between the Burnley and PSG games. There's a term that Clayton used on the Planet FPL rotation pod this morning for the 5 subs. He called it FUBs. So let's refer to that to keep it easy going forward. I think the FUBs will be a big factor going forward with Newcastle. We'll see these guys like Trippier, etc., come off after 60 plus minutes. So let's say now another thing with the pick I've got there with Burn is his flexibility is he can also cover for centre back. If I see him playing midweek now against City, I'll probably rest him and play Cash. Some sort of predictability over there. I'll monitor his minutes over there. Then against West Ham. Against West Ham, Burns' height I think will be needed. They're a very big physical team. He's one of the main guys at set pieces. He might get a start over there. Now, I'm quite set on Botman, the Burn pick. I'm a little bit iffy about, but I've thought about switching a Palace defender there, something like a Mitchell and Anderson. But the problem is 2 of the next 5, that is game week 6 and 8 are good. 7 is a little bit dodgy again. You don't want to play necessarily a defender there. 9 again, they play Newcastle away. 10, they play Tottenham. And right now they have an injuries. I think Gahey is expected back, but Lerma might be out for a while. So not that keen. That's about that. And I think I most likely will change one of them to an Arsenal defender around game week 11 or 12. I'll generate some money by then, go to a Gabriel, etc. Let's talk about Newcastle defense. What are your guys' thoughts?
I think they're very good for the next 2 because of the rest periods, because of just the fixtures themselves. Sheffield United away and Burnley at home, both good fixtures. But after that, I think you don't need to have 2 necessarily. So people who are thinking about dead ending to a wildcard, I think they can get 2 and be happy, fine. But I think you need to sort of think, do you actually have to have 2? And my general comment actually looking at this defense is Estupinian, apart from this week, probably doesn't have any upside game in the next 4. I mean, he can do well in any, obviously that caveat aside. In terms of clean sheets, not many I can see where you can play him until game week 10. With Cash, very big upside, obviously. But how many times are you going to, for the next 2, I think probably you will bench him, which is Chelsea away and Brighton at home. After that, great run. So for me, if you think about your Newcastle spot as I need 1 defender, play him in the next 2 and then make him into a Cash, either get Cash later or just use that spot as a dead spot. So what I'm trying to say is there's not a lot of merit in going spending too much in Newcastle defense on a wild card compared to somebody who's not on a wild card and wants to sort of dead end their team to game week 10. So I think you're being wise by not overspending there. I would even say if you wanted to get down to 1, it's not the end of the world. I think we've now come from completely underrating Newcastle defense to, I think, a little bit overrating Newcastle defense.
Spot on. Like you said, the burn is primarily there to cover Estupinan till game week 9. That's how I'm looking at him. After that, he's pretty much, I'm going to be Estupinan cash botman every week, right? Because that's why, again, I had a look at fixtures short term 4. There's no other real defender who can cover him at 4.5. It's a tricky block of fixtures for everyone.
Don't go Estupinan then.
I want him in place again, right? For the longer term A and B, I think this week could be anything. Bournemouth at home, I don't want to go without that. Again, that comes back to I want to have some sort of downside protection against the non-wildcarders, and that's why those 3 guys who I think could hurt me, Rashford, Estupinan, and Saka remain. LR?
I mean, if you're wildcarding, throw trips in there, man. Like, that's the first thought that comes to me. Like, even if he's not looked as attacking as previous, etc., chase that 15-pointer. Like, chase a little bit of upside is what I'd say. And just the one advantage that I see of having trips is it's closer to get Trent if he emerges as a pick. And it might just not Trent, it's Trent or Robbo. And you might be looking at the shift by the time 9 or 10 comes. It's just an easier move in terms of team structure, depending on how you move the pieces around, getting him in place. Like, when I'm looking at that defense, it feels like you don't really need cover. I think your perception of a few picks is something I want to talk to you about in terms of how do you view Cash right now? Are you viewing him as somebody who is extremely dependent, attacking like Estupinan? Do you really need to play the fixtures with him? Because right now he's chilling, like you said, in the box, in the opposition box. So he can come up with a 10-pointer any game, no matter what the opposition is. And because the thing is, I don't know how big the window with Cash is as a differential right now. Because Moreno is getting fitter and fitter. And it could happen very soon where Moreno plays as the more attacking wing back. We don't know. But right now, Cash is just showing great attacking impetus. And I don't know how much of the fixtures you want to play with him. So I feel like you spread the funds too much and constrict them a little. Try to cover fixtures less a little and chase upside a little more is how I would do the defense.
Got your point. Trippier is definitely the biggest dilemma I want to talk to you guys about. I think let's move on to midfield and then we can talk about possibly how to
talk
fund
about
that.
Trippier, no? While we're talking about this, like just close those thoughts is where I am.
No, I think Trippier is a great pick, but again, might be building a narrative in my head. I don't think they're going to be blowing teams 4-0, 5-0. Take the Burnley game, for example. They play PSG midweek. After they go, let's say 2-0, 3-0 up, will they really be going gung-ho? Afterwards, they'll be looking to control games out a little bit. So
but you like that.
You like that because you might even see a Trippier sub off for that sense. But ultimately, I want Trippier, but I can't find money for Trippier. And that's what I want to talk to you guys about, where you would possibly find that 2 million. Because something I am wrestling with is taking that 2 million out of, let's say, somebody like a Saka. But that sort of commits me to structure going forward, where I can only have one semi-premium mid, which I'm not that keen of in terms of as flexibility going forward. Because like you said, I'm a little bit in the dark about picks I want and don't want. I still don't know if I want Rashford, Son, Saka, etc. longer term. If I had that clarity, I'd say yes. But in general, I want to keep my spend minimal in defense this season.
It's tricky.
Fair enough.
I can see the arguments for both sides. While I think Trippier has a 12-pointer in one of these 4 games, like we know he has it. 1 assist, clean sheet, and 3 bonus.
3 bonus.
He has it in him. So you can say that, but then, if you sacrifice Saka could have a 12-pointer against Bournemouth. And what Saka gives you is also the fact that you can get to a Maddison and a Son in game week 8, where they play Luton. So again, season of FOMO, there will be upsides to chase in whichever position it is. But I can also see the argument for Trippier because I think Trent is dropping to 7.8 shortly because he's 7.9 and I can see he's already on a close to a red. So, man, I mean, I think it'll be very tempting if, when Liverpool embark on this Everton, Nottingham Forest, Luton, Brentford, Fulham, Sheffield United to get a Trent in that position. But having said that, you can make this double transfer then. So it's not
exactly. That's the point. The money is mobile in attack, right? And what I have always felt, it's very difficult to take money out of defense. it's a bit easier to put it into it. Maybe it's a mental thing, but once you have somebody like Trippier there, you're going to look at Palace at home, Wolves away, like, I don't need to take him out. Even when you get to the tough run where they have the 4 home games against Chelsea, Arsenal, and United, I think from game week 12 on, you're going to be like, oh, Trippier can still haul in those games. Yeah. It becomes a bit
like
sticky.
Pras said, you can make the double transfer, right, at any point. If you can take away the psychology from it, if you're making the double transfer at any point, the best 2 fixtures for Newcastle are now.
Next 2.
The week you're wildcard. Like the week you're wildcarding. Like play those odds is what I'd do. And I'd been Estupiñán is what I'd do.
Estupiñán won't really fund it. You'd have to fund it in midfield because I need to effectively raise 2 million.
Yeah. It's tough. It's tough, especially once you have more. It's tough, right? It's not easy.
We talk about money. Yeah, money's too tight to mention.
Yeah, exactly. We'll think about it, but it's an option. And then
let's talk about it right now.
4.2, 4.3 defender that we like?
I mean, Reguilon is 4.4, but either way, not going there.
Yeah, you'd much rather just have Udogie in there, right, as a 4.5 backup because Spurs do have
4.7 now. Later. Yeah, but that's again only 0.4 saved. These are pennies. I need to 2 million is a significant saving, and you can only find that by downgrading either Saka or Rashford.
That's true. He needs to go for an Eze
over
instead
Saka.
of one of those pieces.
Exactly. Eze over Saka. Because Rashford, again, I liked what I saw of Rashford. People can shit on Man United. I do it all the time. I thought he looked really good versus Brighton.
See, one is supporting Sterling, one is supporting Rashford. What a great combination.
Absolutely, right. So again, I think Rashford has haul potential versus Burnley, and the fixtures are actually really good for Manchester United. Even after the Sheffield United, the City game is at home, etc.
Pause. I just want to circle back a little. How far are you from it if you go 4.0 keeper for your second keeper?
Still quite far, yeah. That's only 500,000. I can upgrade a Burn to a share. I can upgrade
Salah
a Burn to a share.
It's the same Game Week 1 argument. If you have Salah, you can't have luxury. You can't have premium midfielders, or you can't have
with 2 premium mids and Haaland is actually a lot in attack.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm thinking about Flecken, because I wouldn't be surprised to see a world where, let's say, Trent or Robbo emerge as picks and you're selling your keeper to fund it. Like it's difficult, and you want to constrict, like you want to hold 2-3 positions bottom money.
Correct. The counter argument.
What happens with a flexible squad is at least you're buying yourself time no matter what.
Exactly. And the counter argument you can make to that, the 6.5 mids are great this year. Eze is good. Eze can possibly become a Bowen or a Ward-Prowse, etc., etc. So Mitoma, there are a lot of options there, but from what I saw, Saka has haul potential, and I'm scared as much of more than the Tottenham game of the Bournemouth game. And again, going back to downside protection, Saka's EO. A lot of people don't look at EO. Full confession, I look at EO. Especially this early on in the season, I don't want to be left behind. It's 85%. I'm not willing to bet against
Who's
that.
85?
Saka.
Is he 85? Wow.
Yep. On my live FPL, I don't know, it'll be different because my rank's in the gutter.
Maybe some captained him or something. Yeah, okay.
So maybe 85% EO is not something I'm willing to bet against, because I think he's a home game guy. The game against Tottenham, I can see him scoring. The game against Bournemouth could be literally a tennis score. So I'm not prepared to do
even
Saka.
More than that, I think having Saka and Rashford is a bigger picture point.
It's a bigger picture point. Exactly. That's what I'm.
We don't know anything about Spurs right now, right? I mean, people have changed their perception on Spurs because, oh my God, Maddison disappointed and Son disappointed. Spurs won last minute. They're on a high. What if they go and beat Arsenal, at the Emirates? Imagine the high that they are on. And then suddenly this wildcard team, you're thinking, okay, I need to have Maddison and one more midfielder. Let's say that is Richarlison. Let's say that is Son. You cannot do that if you have a Trippier. Simple. You can do that if you have a Rashford and a Saka. That's the thinking.
Exactly. So that's purely the thinking. Just for flexibility, keeping the money mobile with these guys, because it's one downgrade.
Yeah, I agree. Fair enough.
And then
fair enough.
You have to pick your poison in terms of what are you giving up. I actually would, even though I think we're all big Trips fans, but I showed it by captaining him game week 37. I'm a big Trips fan. I would definitely try to have him, but thinking through where will be my pain points in the next 4 game weeks, they come in midfield. We've just been through this trauma in the first 5 weeks where every week we're talking Foden or Maddison or Son or whatever. Pain points will come in midfield for sure.
Yeah, like I agree with you now, because I have this chat. The downgrade from Trips to set 4.55 million Newcastle defender is shorter, perceivably shorter than the downgrade from a premium light to a 6.5 millimeter midfielder. Like that, there are only two midfielders that I'd probably recommend right now if you're to save money. Like Eze doesn't inspire me with as much confidence as yet, because you want slightly more ceiling when you're looking at a midfielder. Yes, Eze has great fixtures. He's trickled down. He's got penalties and he's been unlucky so far. But like Sterling is one I'd actually be confident about or punt in there trying to save money, because I think he offers. I think he's going to offer.
I guess, yeah. I'll
Yeah,
have to go
but
fleck
he's the one. He's the one I'd go down for, because I think he's going to offer enough value for money if you're doing something like that in terms of downgrading. And then there's a punt. I know you might not go for it because it might be too much, but the two fixtures are there. I think Doku cemented himself.
Yeah, he's the one who's actually been looking at. I'm not going to lie. He's the one I potentially think who could give me that flexibility. But it's possibly a transfer committed. I'm not convinced. Like, it's definitely a place I'll be looking at, arming. You know, I don't like team sheets. With this, let's say Arsenal look good. Saka scored against City last year. I can still even hold on to Saka if Arsenal look on fire. Then because the fixture against Chelsea is not a tough fixture. Let's be honest. Arsenal are a way, way better team than us. And then it's Sheffield United. I might even decide I might not just want one Spurs. Might want to keep Rashford. It's purely because, like you said, I don't know things yet.
Correct. There's a little bit of unknown here. That's what you have to.
That's why I'm going with the guys I know. Go with the devil you know, right? That's what we always do.
And objectively speaking, Saka and Rashford are good FPL picks. Nothing has changed. Really. Nothing really has changed. They're decent FPL picks for that price. It's just about where you can find the money saving. Like, there's only two names I'm confident in if you want to find money in trips, and those are the two names I told you.
Yeah, Doku and Sterling, right?
Yeah.
As they, again, good numbers and everything, but it's not a player I think my temperament can handle personally. I'll see two blanks and I'll be like, he needs to go. Because there's so much in midfield where you can get to, right? And effectively in midfield, you're always going to be chasing a little bit. When you see your guy disappoint for 2 weeks, let's say he plays Fulham, Manchester United, Forest, always going to be eyeing, not that keen on that.
I mean, Eze is a question instead of Diaby as a confirmed transfer. So what you could think of is basically you play Eze for the next 3. If he does well, obviously there's an option to keep as well. But let's do a Diaby discussion, because look, I think Villa makes sense to have now. Because everybody will jump on Villa going forward. But if we look at the underlying data for Villa, it's good. But then when you go look at Diaby, and we had this table where we were sorted.
Numbers. I'm finding it.
So if we sort out all the mids, basically, this is all mids under 7 million that have played over 30 minutes on average. So non-pen XGI per 90. And, Diaby's numbers are actually fairly bad, and
he's anti-Eze.
He's anti-Eze. But what data tells us is over 38 game weeks, Eze will catch up to Diaby if this continues. Obviously, this is only 5-game sample. Maybe this flips over time. Diaby's numbers in Germany were good, so there's no reason to say that his underlying data will not catch up. But any concerns there, or you're set on Diaby?
I want him from game week 8, and it's not a place where I want to book a transfer. That's it. I don't look at the Chelsea fixture as a difficult one at all for Villa. I think the way, in fact, that's more of a game where he get the space on the counter, etc. And again, Brighton is another game which I expect to be open. And Villa's XG at home is mental. Let's just look at some quick team data for stats so far for XG non-penalty. Villa are third, and you have to keep this in mind. Against Newcastle, game week 1, they generated pretty much nothing. So this is effectively a 4 games. You're seeing of an average of close to like 2+ XG.
I mean, last 10 home games is the stat that Phil shared on our group. It's got last 10 home games for Villa. We scored 24 goals, conceded 3 goals, and they've got 7 clean sheets. Their home form is insane. It's ridiculously good. And I like Diaby as a pick, and it's my perception is getting firmer the more I'm watching it, because right now he's using Bailey to provide the width. Earlier he used Diaby to provide the width and maybe sometimes come inside. The more we are progressing, the more I'm seeing him use Diaby just as a second striker. And because Watkins is so good at being a decoy and at being a team player and doing things that enable players around him to play better, I'm just seeing a lot of the chances falling to Diaby. I am just liking where he's present every time the ball's getting crossed in from either side, and which is just in and around the center of the box. So I think he's a good pick. I think again, fixtures don't matter too much for a team like Villa. You're sort of confident they score against anybody. So I have no comms going in early because I think it's a transfer that all of us are going to make when we wildcard. It's a good spot to be in my opinion. And like you mentioned, the next two games are decent from an attacking perspective. It's all right.
Precisely. Again, more than anything, it's a long-term play. I'm
Yeah.
aware
Correct,
that
but-
you could use that spot and you could use that, maybe book in a transfer there. But I want the transfer to be for my premium guys.
Yeah.
I mean, for a game week 10 perspective, wildcard perspective, I can tell you at least the initial thinking now is I'm only going to have Diaby for 3 weeks. Of course, unless he changes his numbers. Basically, I want Diaby for Luton at home, Nottingham Forest away, and Fulham at home.
And
After that, he plays
West Ham is also decent, I think, right after
West
the
Ham,
break.
but we won't wildcard by then. I mean,
Correct.
if you're wildcarding in 9 for game week 10. So yes, I think for you, West Ham is also good. Even Wolves away is good. It's worth going there, but I'm just highlighting that there is a
Correct.
risk that he's not showing it. So you could have 2 games where he's blanked and then you think, shall I hold on? When you really actually want him for 9, 10, 11, 12.
So the thing is, I mentally prepared myself for that. I know that this guy is pretty much a glue pick now for the next 5 to 6 game weeks. And I think he plays for a much better team than Eze. And he has shown already that output that he can get it. So I think I'll be more patient with a Diaby there than an Eze.
For me, Diaby over Eze 10 out of 10 times at the moment, just given what we've seen. I think
Pens,
he's
man,
that
fish
player.
and chips, pens. But anyway,
I just picked Diaby. Eze is a good pick, but I just picked Diaby.
Yeah.
And,
We can't really fault
so-
Eze. I think Eze is a good pick. I'm
Yeah.
not shitting on it, but I think Diaby is better.
fair.
Yeah.
fair.
But the perception is also in my head because of Guehi and midfielder. There's a midfielder injured
Lerma.
there as well. So
Jefferson
yeah.
Lerma.
But he's back, I think.
like
now.
Guehi
like
is
that's the
expected
news
to be
that-
back. It's minor, but Lerma, they're still having a scan done.
whenever I see Hughes play for Crystal Palace, that's just like flashes of, okay, stay away from this team at the moment. Because whenever they rely on him, that team just doesn't seem to function as well. And like we saw it, I mean, we had these two teams play against each other this weekend, and one team just blew the other one out of the water completely, is what I thought.
Correct.
Yeah.
Salah is obviously locked.
Salah is a
So
lock.
Rashford, Saka, we talked about. Are there any others in that premium light category that you would think about instead of those two? I mean, maybe starting with a Maddison. Some people would just say, look, then nothing has changed with Maddison. Great pick. Foden. Other areas where you've thought about for those 2 slots?
Foden possibly not, because again the numbers, while they're being good, 0 big chance created, I mentioned this on my video on Monday, is something that keeps sticking in my head. And I still think eventually I might find a City defender I want to go to, because I know you have included Watkins in all of your wildcard drafts. I think Alvarez is a gift. It feels to me, I remember Suarez, Sturridge that one season. If you just get those 2 guys who are the forward guys for City, you might get the odd benching. But at 6.8 for a player of his caliber, it's an absolute steal. I think he's a far better pick. Even like, let's say like you have a Alvarez playing a Man United versus a Watkins playing a Forest. Maybe Man United is a bad example given the situation, but let's say an Alvarez playing an Arsenal versus a Watkins playing the Wolves. I'd have Alvarez every day of the week.
Yeah. And something's changed, in terms of how City are playing. It's because Pep changes the way he plays sort of every week or every season, and he has these little spurts of phases in terms of how he's making his team play certain ways, etc. Like, it's just a learning for us in the future where they are reliant on De Bruyne every time to create, and the moment he's out, like, it needs to be sort of automatic in our head that, consider Alvarez, get him, and it's sort of automatic. He's just playing closer to goal, and what's actually striking to me is the more and more the weeks are passing, like that showed yesterday, the partnership between him and Haaland, the understanding between them two is just increasing. Like, if you watch a City game today versus if you watch the first 2 City games of the season, they're just so much more on the same wavelength today. And actually, it's sort of trending with Alvarez's stats as well. There's sort of trending upwards. He's getting more and more involved. Like the first 2-3 games, I thought it's all right. He's not as involved, and his points of, relatively speaking, been sort of jamming. But the more you watch through stats, his performances, the chemistry, his involvement, more and more teammates are finding him is just trending upwards.
What's
Fair,
your
fair.
thoughts, Pras, on Alvarez overperformance that has been highlighted in the community over the past few days?
I have no comments on his. I mean, he's a nailed guy playing in the middle. Good pick. I mean, but I'm still open to going against him in certain weeks, and those weeks are, like I've mentioned, Man City play Arsenal game week 8, Brighton game week 9, Man United game week 10, Chelsea game week 12, Liverpool game week 13, Spurs game week 14, Villa away game week 15. It's just a run where, of course, you expect Man City to win and to score goals, but not to win 4-0, 5-0. And so, therefore, if you can find other patches of other strikers that have good, of course, we were wrong with Jackson in this case, but maybe we won't be wrong the next time. And I back Watkins over, let's say, an Alvarez. Obviously, they're not the same price. But when Watkins will play West Ham, Luton, Nottingham Forest, and Fulham and Bournemouth, I think I might prefer that, or even a Jesus when he gets to a good fixture run. So I feel, yes, I think Alvarez right now on Wildcard makes complete sense, but I'm not right now 100% that I'll have Alvarez in game week 10.
That's fair enough. There's some stats I want to read out from Opta Analyst from yesterday's game. 15 of Man City's shots last night were either attempted by or created by Alvarez. So that's 8 chances created. Sorry, the other way around. 8 attempts or 7 chances created. Only 4 players in recorded history since 2003-04 have been involved more in a single UCL match. That's Robin, Kaká, and Ronaldo twice. That's how good a purple patch he is in right now.
And I don't expect this to come down now. It's trending up, and I expect that to continue trending. Even City, right? If you remember season before last or last season, they're sort of playing in a way they're trying to exhaust the opposition, etc. The last 3 or 4 games, it's no respite, man. I think it's 3.2, more than 3.2, 3.3 XG, all 3 games. That's just incredible numbers. Those are incredible attacking numbers. Pep isn't taking the foot off the pedal just yet. They're like, you know what, blow every team off. I don't know what it is at the moment, but betting against them is scary.
I'm going to bore you guys a little bit with this. Now, Focal sent this to me. Now, this is about that 4.0 defender. I'm currently on Kabore because we saw some sort of attacking impetus. I have to speak to our Luton friend, Dan, about how strong Kabore's prospects are going forward. But after the double, Kabore's fixtures are quite rubbish, where Burnley is a little bit better. But of course, the double is better for the Hatters. Do you guys think possibly commit to Burnley just in case you might need him off the bench later on as a 5th spot, or just stick with Kabore? Because keep in mind, none of the Burnley upside guys are higher than 4.2. The only guys at 4.2 are your Bayer and the centre backs. So with the Kabore, you are getting a bit of upside.
Keep only game week 6 in mind or game week 7 in mind. Whenever the double is, you're probably never going to use that spot ever again.
That's what I thought as well.
Yeah, because even your first sub is going to be a decent defender. Your second sub is going to be Archer. Like, he's also a gift. Like, you're not going to need that spot. Don't bother about it too much.
Yeah,
think about who you're going to play in the double.
Exactly.
That's it.
A lot of people I've noticed have gone in with Morris in that 8th spot. What are you guys' thoughts on that? I personally find that in general, there's a transfer out you're going to have to make at some point for that 1 million. I like him for somebody who's going to wildcard him out, right? Because you can dead end and then you are not stuck with him. But on a wildcard to commit a transfer out for him, for that you will need that money at a certain point. And you'll also be likely benching a very good asset in attack. The next week, a lot of people are benching, let's say, a Madison away to home to Liverpool. I can't really get on board, especially keeping in mind Morris was subbed at 70 minutes last game when they were chasing a goal.
It's done. I don't think anyone's going after the Alvarez thing. There were some feelings where people would go Morris instead of Alvarez to get some value, to get Trippier. It's done now. If everybody has got Haaland and Alvarez, even Edward, I would say, is a good pick if you wanted to go slightly lower. Morris has just shown nothing. If he gets a pen, some people go there, congratulations. But I think, again, we don't know enough at the moment. Luton keep losing, even against Fulham. There was nothing there. We discussed in the previous pod, let's evaluate them after 2 game weeks. Well, we've done double. Half of that.
Correct.
It's not really to the extent where I would actually tell you to go Bear. Because even though one of the doubles is harder, one of the doubles is Luton. And in the blank game week, same logic for Botman. You have one extra cover for a guy who's playing Fulham versus a guy who's playing in the blank. I mean, in blank game week 18.
18, yeah, right.
You have one extra guy who's playing Fulham versus not. But because now if you have Alvarez, by the way, long term, You have 2 people blanking in game week 18.
Correct. So Archer, Sabin, and I'll need one more, most likely. Who do Sheffield United play that week? Any idea?
Sheffield United
Let's see if I
play Aston Villa away.
It's just too far away. Aston Villa away, not
And
too
Luton
bad.
play Newcastle at home.
Okay. Not the worst,
I'm,
but again,
I'm
not
reading
ideal.
this out to be clear. I don't want to freak people out.
Fair enough. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And that going back to your point about Spurs, they're definitely on my mind. But the way I'm looking at it, I think the next 2 games are better for Son than they are for Maddison. From what I saw with the Manchester United game, Maddison in these tougher fixtures will have to do a lot more work in midfield, and you won't see him being that ghost runner in the box. You might take along with assists, but I think the ceiling for goals is a little bit higher with Saka and Rashford for the next 2.
And who knows? After 2 weeks, Richarlison could be the one to get. We don't know that
True.
yet.
We don't know.
Yeah.
There's a news about the injury to Perisic that just broke before we're coming. And if you ask me, for the North London derby, he's not going to play Solomon on Saka's side. He'll likely have to play Son there with Richarlison centre forward. That's what
Or
makes
Brendan
more
Johnson
sense.
could play on the left, actually, and he
Yeah.
could become a good pick.
We don't know
Yeah.
that. But again, I don't think he'll throw him in the derby just yet, because Kulusevski, again, is
But-
somebody who works very hard defensively.
Whatever the position is going to be, Son is going to be an outlet on the counter.
Precisely.
Like he's going to be using, like whether that's whatever, it's semantics, whether you think of him as a playing on the wing or the center. He's going to be using Son to make those runs behind those defense, because those are high lines. Like that, this game is more Burnley in terms of opposition style than it is the last weekend. And
Precisely the
Son
point.
breaking
Absolutely.
through is going to be in his mind, in my opinion.
So that's why I said they're better games for Sun. If I had to go one for
Yeah.
the next 2 weeks, I'd probably have Sun, but I'm 0.0 on this draft. So I'd have to I have to downgrade a Flecken, etc., which I'm not that keen on doing.
Pras, what would you change in midfield from Zoph's midfield draft if going wildcarding now?
I mean, I think Saka, Rashford, Salah picked themselves. And Mbumo, you already know my views. Diaby, I'm not that convinced yet. I could be wrong, but I'm not that
Yeah.
convinced. I would personally actually think about an Eze more, but it's difficult for me to say. I've not put the same thought as Zoph has in terms of the future transfers and where this team gets
I
to.
mean, yeah. And also the thing is,
Yeah.
United away again, we can look at how bad where you guys are. It's still not an easy fixture for your attackers.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
What do you think, Pras, about, a lot of people are interested because a lot of people are on the United double up also right now. Let's just address that. Bruno and Rashford, what do you think?
I went through this big pain of selling Bruno. I mean, I think Bruno is an excellent FPL pick, regardless of how Manchester United do. On the top
Yeah.
of the diamond, where we've sort of now played, and I think Ten Hag hinted that we'll continue to play that way. He should theoretically do better against easier teams, because he will basically have all the license to stay up and not have to track back, because there's 3 central midfielders behind. But then
Yeah.
Mount is coming back, and my thinking was I don't want exposure here, because I expected us to get, there was a chance that we would lose to Brighton. And then if we lose tonight to Bayern Munich, we are basically falling into a crisis club type, especially in the media. And I didn't want 2 players from that. And between the 2,
Yeah.
I just feel, given these fixtures, I prefer Rashford.
I just think that they can coexist. We can be a bad club and not be in a good space, and Rashford and Bruno can be good FPL assets at the same time, where we might not do well, we might not win games, but these 2 players will continue to get chances. These 2 players and their FPL points will keep continuing, is where I am at.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't panic in terms of FPL, and I think it's different from where our clubs are in terms of performance and being able to get 3 points on board.
Correct.
Like-
But you can manage exposure by going down from 2 to 1 if you wanted to.
And even if some people own one or the other, neither are a hard sell at the moment, because
Yeah.
performance was rubbish. But tactically speaking, Bruno's become a better pick if we persist with the diamond. Tactically speaking, Rashford becomes a better pick playing alongside a striker like Holland. Like that's happened, and we saw that difference. Like I was pulling my hair because Rashford actually just needs to learn how to play with a striker. There were at least 5 instances where he could have found Holland with a pass, because he's so used to not having anybody in there or not having some striker to play with. Holland was actually taking up some really good positions as well. So those are my thoughts on United assets. Is Saka continuing to be an FPL pick? I just want to actually talk about general holds. all three of us agree with that at the moment, right?
Yes.
It's a little bit, it's turning from a dark green to a light green with Saka for
Yeah.
me, just in terms of what Arsenal have shown at the moment. They're already spreading out the goals. And I think I always feel like Trossard is also a goal scorer. There are goals are spread. Jesus hasn't come back in completely. Saka finds a way, but he had 0 XG in the last game. So it's not like I would say Saka's, you have to have him. But again, you want some Arsenal. They're playing North London Derby, which usually has goals. They're playing Bournemouth away, which should be a good fixture. So definitely, obviously, it is not a sell. But I can also understand if people on a wildcard decided not to go for Saka.
Yeah.
I can get on board totally. Did consider the short-term punt on Trossard as well, because that's exactly the 2 million I need to find. But again, this becomes a structure you're committing to.
Yeah.
With the mids.
There's
Or a
one
transfer.
nailed on 90-minute player with 3 good fixtures.
Sterling.
Like, that's an option if you want to save the money. That's all.
Oh man, I really hope he does well this weekend.
Yeah. In terms of what you might need to plan for in the future, though, so it's just one team you need to look at, and that's Liverpool. Like, because their players are not easy to get. Like,
it's only Trent, right, who's not easy to get.
Darwin. Like, if Darwin becomes a better option than 5th midfielder of choice.
Then there's 2 transfers. You just
I
downgraded
understand.
That's
But
it. I understand.
I'm just saying it's a genuine.
Correct, but that's
It's a
something
genuine
possibly around
conversation
game
to
week
have.
9. Because again, as we've seen, he bench these South American guys, might not continue. But after we generally seen during the international break, we saw Diaz and Darwin bench. Might happen again, might not. But I'll give that a bit more time. I can get there again.
Yeah. It's just an important conversation to have with regards to Darwin, because I feel like we're on the precipice where it used to be the conversation where this guy is going to be on the bench, probably not start. He was in Klopp's bad books and isolated. Every time he's come on this season, he's impacted the game. When he started the game, he's played well. His numbers are always off the charts no matter what. I am more confident in Mo Salah as a pick for you, because I think he's a much better asset when he plays with Darwin Núñez, because it just opens up a lot more space for him. And I think we're going to learn a lot more about Liverpool and how Klopp especially treats the Europa League, because I think there's a chance it makes their team sheet and the front three a lot more predictable. And if there is a case that he sticks with a front three in Europe and a front three in the league, you might need to act accordingly, because the fixtures turn really good really quickly. Like, it's game week 8. So that's what you need to just plan for.
That's fair. And I want to ask you guys, since we are recording before the Bayern Munich game, what would you like to see from Manchester United? Because people in the chat are mentioning that United look poor today, people will drop. But I think today's game has to be looked at completely in isolation, right? Bayern Munich is completely different from your Burnley, Palace or Brentford. The tactics, the way you play against Bayern Munich is not going to be the same.
Yeah.
We're going to lose. And I don't think the game we can take positives from it. But unless we win away, other than Man United fans, nobody's going to take any positives from it. So yeah, there will be some mass panic. I mean, think of it like if Newcastle lost 2-0 yesterday to Milan, I don't think anybody would complain. It was a game where they could have lost 2-0. And then it would arbitrarily affect people's perception of whether they should double up on Newcastle defense or not. It's the same thing. I think it's a difficult game, not expecting much at all.
And I think the FPL crowd is generally fairly suave and in tune. Like, even if we lose 5-0, 6-0, for example, people do look at, okay, United's fixtures are these, and they're looking between 2-3 other teams to sell. And everybody's primary target this week is either a Newcastle defender or a Man City striker. So I don't think it's going to affect it as much, because people's sights in terms of who to buy are in the forward line or in defense.
Correct.
Spot on. What else do we
Can I
have
ask you a macro point,
Sure.
a big picture point, Zoph?
Sure, please.
To what extent are you fighting an urge to change? So like I saw a comment in the chat, or let's look at my team compared to your wildcard.
Let's do it.
There is no, apart from Salah, there's no player I'm fearing in your wildcard team.
Correct.
There's no pick where I say he's going to make up 20 points on a non-wildcard team in the next 3 weeks. How do you think about that mindset? Do you need to? Or have you just looked at it as, this is my team, I've changed it, I feel I'll score 20 more points in the next 3 weeks, that's all that matters?
See, the thing is, I always struggle when I'm chasing. Certain people like late riser are happy to go with the picks against the grain. That's not my style. And so what I don't want to do is to be left very far behind. I want to at least stay with the pack a little bit. And I feel this team is going to help me achieve that. And in fact, hypothetically, so let's say Salah scores a hat trick against West Ham. Lot of wildcards are getting pulled next week.
Yeah.
Newcastle defense keeps a couple of clean sheets. So I'm trying to get the little advantage I can get from Salah right now, while protecting myself from the downside of losing somebody like a Saka and a Rashford. Because I look at the other EO guys, nobody's big EO who's going to hurt me. Even Son is not, even though a lot of people got him, is still 25-30. Madison is 40-50, but Madison is a bet I'm prepared to make given the difficulty of the next two opponents. That's it.
If you ask me to read Zoph's mind, I don't think he's given that too much of a thought.
Not at all.
His entire head is in terms of how do I solve this puzzle. Like he's not thinking about, okay, how do I differentiate from the non-wildcarders? He's thinking about stability of his team 7, 8, 10 weeks down the line is what is probably going to occupy his mind, in my opinion. And he's generally also a grafter. He's not going to look to shortcut his way out of 20, 30 points, just like he's never going to go chasing.
That's the sensible move. I mean, I would be the same. So this is why I wanted to actually use the question as a point to make. Where absolutely, I mean, if the team
I'm very wary of differentiating for differentiating sake. You can very well say that Saka has 2 toughish fixtures, or Tottenham, 3 fixtures coming. I want to go against him. I'll pick somebody else who can possibly, if we flip the coin, that happens. But I'm not like that. I think Saka's a good pick. That's it.
Okay.
So players that are not in your team that are closest to being in your team as things stand?
Trippier is again the big dilemma that I'm going around and around, but I think I'm going to skip. The main spot that's troubling me a little bit is Burn. I'm considering a Palace defender for that, but so I'll just go through the rotation with that real quick. The thing
Can't afford Shar?
Shearer, again, the Flecken spot has to go. And I don't think necessarily like the Burn, the way I think about it, I think he maybe misses 1 game out of the next 4, and that's what I really need to cover, where Flecken for me is more of a longer term pick. So I'm willing to make that sacrifice possibly for that 1 game rather than get the benefit.
No, but Share is a little bit of a short-term ceiling chase also, right? Is where I am.
Correct. But
compared
again,
to Burn.
See, the thing is with Newcastle, right? The fixtures are good up to like game week 10. But after that, you look at it as Arsenal at home. What we like Newcastle for are the home defense, right? They're significantly much better at St. James Park. Look at the fixtures from 11. It's Arsenal at home, Chelsea at home, United at home. All 3 they can keep a clean sheet against, but I'd rather have the easier fixtures like your Wolves, your Bournemouth, your Everton at St. James Park. So during that time, I'm going to look at Share that this guy's taking up too much money. At that point, I can possibly look at Botman as somebody I relegate to my bench, bring in somebody like a Gabriel, a Stupinan, and a Cash, who I'll play every week, and Botman will be the cover for the rotation. So that's more of a long-term picture. I'm thinking of I'm willing to lose the 1 game I get from the Burn this week of a random rotation, because there's not much I'm going to lose out. He gets 6 or he gets 1, even if he gets subbed on. It's not that big of a loss. But the Palace defense is something I am tempted by, because I can play them for, let's say, Fulham, play them for Forest, play Cash at home versus Brighton in 7. But then 9 gets a little bit messy. I'll probably have to, because Stupinan is away to City, Palace are away at Newcastle. I don't want to play Cabore necessarily away to Forest. Even Tottenham is not great, even though that's a dead spot in the fixture run after, but is really good. So it's something that's in my mind. I can't afford Anderson, but Mitchell is attacking a bit from open play. Not that.
If you're looking at a non-Newcastle defender, it's Udogi or nobody. If you ask me,
yeah, that's out of budget again. It has to be 4.5 or under.
There's nobody else that's convinced me.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
so I think Burn starts 3 of the next 4, which I'm okay with.
Fair enough. Pras, anybody you spotted that could help Zoph? Or I think Burn. I just think you should go there because it's a good team to rely on also.
That's what it is.
Yeah, I think it's decent. If you get a benching, you get a benching. But I don't expect it. For the times when
the
you
one
need
guy
it.
you could have gone for actually is injured for the season.
Who are you talking about?
Unfortunately. Rico, your boy.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Sad about that. A lot of people are talking about punting on. Well, one thing I want to ask you guys quickly. If we do get rumors that Alvarez is benched, what do I do?
I think you stick him in your team anyway.
I'd agree, right? Somehow get the sub. I'd maybe even like play an Archer or play a Cash. I'd play a Cash actually. I guess that's what I'd do.
Yeah.
But who are they going to play? Who's fit? Literally nobody's fit. Like I'm.
That's the thing. There's nobody's fit. But again,
so this is why in my team I already made the transfer. I mean, my team is actually on the screen, so I might as well tell people.
He's made the move last night. I did not know that.
He didn't mention. You noticed the tense he used at the beginning. I didn't want to correct him. You used present tense, but it should have been past. It's very shrewd.
The man full of surprises is Pras. I did
No,
not
but the
know
thing
that.
is, there's a reason for it because I have 0.0 flexibility
Trippier.
to do Chilwell to
Yeah.
Trippier. I may not
Yeah.
do it, but basically I didn't want to lose the option of
Is it for
doing that.
free?
No,
for hit.
it'll be a hit. Otherwise, I would do it if it was for free. So this is why. I mean, should we just discuss teams now?
Yeah, sure. Let's move on to drafts. I
Yeah.
don't think there's much
Yeah.
else for us to cover.
Yeah.
So I mean, my team is on here. So let me just talk about it then. So Pickford comes back in goal. Chilwell, Ruben Diaz. I'm happy to have actually Ruben Diaz, which puts a little bit less pressure for me to get a Newcastle defense because he's playing Nottingham Forest this week as Estupiñán is playable. So my thinking in defense is if Chilwell sounds to be fine, and right now my inclination is that I'll just go for it and play him. And if he's not, and if I'm getting sort of strong rumors or strong indications that he's not, then move him to Trippier. Then midfield, I think nothing to change. Saka, Son, Rashford, Sterling, and Mbeumo. And I have made Jackson to Alvarez as the move. After last night, after he had played, not because he scored a brace, after he had played, and then we found out that Bernardo Silva was injured. For me, there's basically only 4 people who can play up top in terms of people who are even alive, or as in not injured, are basically Haaland with Alvarez. On the left, you play Doku, and on the right, you play Foden. There is basically nothing else they can do. So I am basically of the mind
Bobby, that guy who came on as a sub yesterday.
With the two Bs.
He'll play against Newcastle.
Yeah.
So my thinking is there's no need to wait. This is the other problem, by the way. If everybody waits, then we will be bloody having a server crash again if we find out 10 minutes before. And I said, look, my view is if this wasn't the first kickoff, I would make the move. Let's make the move.
A lot of people, by the way, are recommending Diogo Dalot to you, Zoph, as a defender. And I'm like, who are you even talking to?
By the way, some models like review have him very high, but he's 4.9. I don't like it. I mean, I think if it was 4.4, you could still try to go for
in
it.
that case, I'd go Region in case, but again.
Yeah.
I'd rather
in general, just as a comment, the thinking behind the long-term longevity of the diamond formation is that when we actually executed it, it will be with Amrabat and Mount instead of Eriksen and McTominay. And that's just like a wide difference in terms of legs, especially when you need players to run on the field. Because what we are seeing right now is the primary issue with United is lethargy. We don't see legs. Nobody's following back. Nobody's tracking back. We're so wide open at the moment. And that's the reason. We just need legs at the moment. There's none.
Yeah. So anyway, with this team, I mean, rolling forward, this Wildcard 10 is still the plan. And basically, if nothing else changes, then I'll save next week. Saka to Maddison and Saliba to Pedro Porro is the move after that. And then Sterling to whoever is starting for Liverpool in the final game week in game week 9, because that's the early kickoff, is the plan.
What if Salah braces and gets an assist?
I'll see him in game week 9.
Yeah.
He's got 2 away games. I'm happy to look. I mean, I get why people are wildcarding for Salah. He's the natural choice. But let's be clear: in the first 5 weeks, he's scored 1 goal. That's not come from a penalty.
Yeah.
So
that's what the main stat that is on point that defined why I'm not wildcarding is right now there's 8 points between all the midfielders that Zoph owns and I own. Like, I don't know who the clear winner amongst these is. And actually, this might be the story. There might not be a clear winner also. So I just don't know that yet. That's it.
For me, Mora, as
Salah's a good pick, though.
I just don't like watching Liverpool without owning Salah. And Liverpool are on TV every bloody week.
Okay.
Your team, LR?
Yeah, so I've got Johnston as my keeper, Chilwell, Saliba, Estupiñán, Son, Rashford, Saka, Maddison, Sterling. I'm obviously hoping for a high-scoring North London derby. And I've got Haaland and Jackson. I've got 0.3 in the bank. 3 potential moves that I could make. Option is Jackson to Alvarez. Option 2 is I go Chilwell or Saliba to Botman. And option 3 is I can do, but I need to move on that tonight because I'm expecting Alvarez to rise, is I can do Pedro to Alvarez, which gives me 8 attackers, and that allows me to do Chilwell to Botman as well.
For a hit.
I need to do that together. I need to make that double move together for a hit. Now my thinking is I'm not going to captain anybody but Erling Haaland. By the way, hands up, this needs to be addressed. It's the last time I'm going to attempt something like that for a long, long time, especially if City keep posting 3.2 plus XG. My
4
God, did
plus,
I
4
get away?
plus.
It was incredible how unlucky you guys were. You guys deserved at least 15 more points than I did. Given I captain Son and both of you deserve captain Haaland, it was incredible. I can't imagine how much. Like I thought there was a little bit of tilt associated with that with the wildcard, but I know that you thought it through and you pulled the wildcard on a Wednesday or Tuesday, not the Friday. But that would be so tilting to actually make a call like that and watch him miss chance after. It was incredible. Incredible. So yeah, these are my 3 potential moves. I don't know if I want to take the hit, and I don't know if I want to prioritize the attacker or the defender. And there's some part of me that wants to give Jackson another go.
I'd get rid of Jackson.
Yeah. I know.
You can even consider playing Pedro instead of Son or Madison, no?
Yeah, but I want to back the good players. Like I know that I don't have comms and doing the whole waiting for Pedro news, etc. Let's see what Europa League. I'll think about it a lot more seriously if he's not on the starting level in Europe.
Yeah, Ferguson is back in training.
Today.
You have to mention that Ferguson is back in training. I just saw that before coming on.
Yeah, so I want to see what happens there. I can get Alvarez for Pedro those off. Like that's the thing. Like if you're talking about squad longevity, I can do Pedro to Alvarez and Chilwell to Botman. Not worry about the two main people
can
that
you
are
do Jackson
differentiating.
To Alvarez, Chilwell to Botman, similar to what Pras is doing.
I mean that is
because
both are cheaper.
Easy, nah? Both are cheaper.
Sorry, not Chilwell to Trippier.
About...
Sorry, I meant Trippier.
No, I can't do that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not inclined to do that because I'm keeping an eye on Darwin.
See, the problem with Jackson is he's not going to last the next. So this game is the harder game. The next 2 away games are fine. He's not going to play both of those games. One game he'll be suspended for.
I'm not sure. We've been here before with Diego Costa.
He's not Diego Costa.
I'm just saying that, like you get the yellow card when you get the yellow card.
I know. He'll obviously be constrained. Yes, he's not a robot who could behave the same way. I get it.
Correct.
I get it.
Yeah,
he definitely will try not to get booked. Obviously, players want to play.
Yeah.
So that's a fair point.
Yeah, Alvarez is a really good pick. It's a really good pick. But like if I'm losing, it's an easy move for Jackson. But I've not been addressing my defense issues for a long time. So and I don't know if I want to lose Chilwell before listening to what Poch has to say. Like that's where I'm stuck because Chilwell could be a handy differential the next 2 weeks. You know what I'm saying? So that's where I am.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I'll think about it tonight and might even just make the double move tonight because if I'm making the double move, it has to be tonight.
I mean, while we're talking about Alvarez, can I ask you a question from Discord from Mehul? He's got Watkins and he's saying, shall I move Watkins to Alvarez? What do you guys think about that?
Watkins arguably has an easier fixture.
No.
We are playing, but I'd make the move, man.
Yeah. Alvarez is just a gift. There's no 2 ways about it.
I'm a little bit more on the fence, but if you need funds, then make the move.
Yeah. It's just a purple patch. And you saw the numbers that we shared earlier in terms of he's right now the focal point of the team. He's doing the creativity and the shooting. Keep in mind that he's had 1 assist less when Haaland missed the penalty. He hit the post also from a free kick. I think the previous game against West Ham.
He did. All right.
Let's wrap up.
He's a good pick. And he's so cheap. He's just literally so cheap. He doesn't need to do much to, give you value for his price is where we are.
A like and subscribe plug before signing off.
Pras, why don't you give us one of your authentic pledges?
Yeah, Wildcard week. We've had Zoph sort of show his cards in terms of what he's thinking, and hopefully it's been helpful for everybody. So if you like the content, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and if you subscribe to the channel, you get access to a bunch of things. I actually wanted to say that we are also coming to the end of our September league, which will all have prizes. So next week we'll announce where people are standing in our prize league for our Discord members. So yeah, join the fun if you can.
Zoph, he's just not the focal point though of that team.
The focal point is the wrong word. Haaland is obviously still the focal point. You can call it the engine.
Yeah. Like I wanted to address that because otherwise there would be people tagging you, and I just wanted to address that.
That's
because we're looking at it's just in terms of XG. There's Haaland at 7.5, and then there's Alvarez at 2.9 and Rodri at 2.5. That's what we're looking at in terms of underlying data.
He's like Gundogan.
Yeah.
Correct. And to be
Yeah.
honest, people will probably criticize us because Sterling score, we picked up Sterling. Son score, we picked up
Yeah.
Son. And now Alvarez went mental, we're picking up Alvarez. So these guys are probably going to say all this pod does is like hype up the shiniest new toy. But
We
Yeah.
will
we
keep
have to be
taking
honest.
shots and we'll score.
But nothing. My opinion in terms of Sterling hasn't changed. He's a good FPL pick. Nothing changed.
Now he is.
Son is a good pick.
Yeah.
It's Jackson
Absolutely.
who's shit.
Yeah.
I think we can agree on that. Partially.
Not
at
all of
least.
us.
Partially.
Not
That's
all
what
of
I
us.
said. The
Yeah,
Timo
yeah.
Werner love hasn't completely faded.
Yeah. Law like that.
Right, guys. Great talking to you. I feel a bit more confident because I don't think we've really been able to break down and make any concrete arguments. You obviously have given me certain things to think about, but I'm feeling a bit more confident after talking to you guys. So I appreciate that. Let us know in the comments also if you guys what you think I should do, shouldn't do, etc. etc. It'd be great to get your feedback. Thanks.
We've got a super chat actually. Let's just quickly answer that. Somebody is asking for like Ramsdale replacements.
Ooh. I think the second keeper is probably. I think you just ride it out till wildcard. I think if he has Turner or somebody in there, ride it out.
If you haven't wildcarded, go for Pope and you have money.
Correct.
Just because that addresses two things.
Ramsdale is
Your
what, 5
Newcastle
million?
defense.
5
Yeah.
million, right?
Good shout. Pope or Flecken or Raya if you're convinced he's got the number one jersey.
Flecken also, if you look at it, even if you like the Manchester United game, again, is good. Get a few saves over there. The fixtures are good. It's Everton, Forest, and Burnley, apart from Man United. So in Flecken, I don't mind as a short-term pick.
Agree.
Yeah, Flecken or Pope. My answer is Flecken or Pope. Great shout on Pope, Pras.
Cool.
I had Pope.
Cheers.
Game week 26 wildcard for very painful 12 weeks.
It was.
Yep.
It was. Right.
Anyway, good
Right.
chatting, guys. I'm going to go as well.
Take care,
Great.
guys.
Thank
Take care.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.